Hello guys, this is Rahul Bhaiya. Welcome to my YouTube channel. So how are your studies going? So in the last video we discussed about early medieval period. Okay, I gave you an overview of early medieval period, right? We also discussed one question which was asked in mains 2024, right? So in this video we'll discuss about how to deal with prelims. Okay, early medieval period in prelims, because since the last 5 years UPSC is asking questions from this portion. Okay, this I'll show you, right? And fortunately for us, these questions are not very tough. Okay, UPSC is only touching the, you can say, surface. It's not going very deep. Okay, so these are more or less superficial questions, but because students leave this portion, okay, completely, so they find these questions very tough, right? So any person who has studied this portion, right, would consider these questions easy. So most of them are easy, right, provided you have read the basics of early medieval period. Okay guys, so now let's start today's video without further ado. So let's look at this question asked in 2020, right? So we'll discuss questions asked from 2020 to 2025. Okay, so consider the following statements in the history of India, right? You have to arrange these statements in chronological order. ये UPSC का favorite तरीका है पूछने का, right? So basically what this question says is that you should know that the main dynasties with respect to early medieval period and also the main kings, so you should know when they ruled, just the century, okay, right? First half, second half, even that they are not asking, right? So in which century the king ruled, this you should know. Okay, this is what UPSC is testing. Now see, rise of Pratiharas under King Bhoj. Okay, so there are two Bhoj kings in early medieval period. One is Gurjar Pratihar King Bhoj, also known as Mihir Bhoj, to avoid confusion with the later Bhoj king, that is Bhoj Parmar, right? So this Pratihar Bhoj ruled during 9th century. Okay, please remember this, 9th century Bhoj Pratihar, also known as Mihir Bhoj, right? So, and second statement, establishment of Pallava power under Mahendravarman first. So guys, this is, you know, early 7th century. Okay, so among these four, this is the earliest. Then establishment of Chola power by Parantak first. Okay, this is, okay, 10th century. Okay, right? Pala power founded by Gopal, this is around 750. So Palas, Pratiharas and Rashtrakutas, or all three, okay, they were founded in early 8th century or towards the mid of 8th century. Okay, so now if we look towards this, then the answer appears to be very simple, 9th century. Okay, so first is, you can see, earliest one is Mahendravarman first, 7th century, so 2. Okay, and then after 2 we see Pala power founded by Gopal, that is 4. Okay, so 2, 4, then 1, rise of Pratiharas, 9th century, then Parantak first Chol, 10th century. Okay, so the correct answer would be 2, 4, 1, 3. Okay, this would be the correct answer. Now for that person who knows this, it is very easy. Okay, now see the explanation, Gurjar Pratihar king of 9th century, Mihir Bhoj. Okay, so I'll show you that even if you know the difference between Mihir Bhoj and Bhoj Parmar, okay, you would be in a position to eliminate some of the options, right? See, Gurjar Pratihar king, okay, also known as Pratihar kings of 9th century. Now Arab merchant, so UPSC is very fond of asking the foreign travelers. Okay, so Suleiman, he was a merchant, Al-Tajir, Tajir means a merchant in Arabic, visited India during his reign, and he mentioned about the strength of his cavalry. Okay, and that he was a bitter enemy of the Arabs, right guys? So period between the conquest of Sindh, that is 712, okay, to 1192, the defeat of, okay, Prithviraj Chauhan. So during this period, many Indian kings, right, many Indian dynasties fought with the Arabs, okay, and Turks and Tajiks. Okay, so this also UPSC keeps in mind, and that's why, because you know right-wing government, so it focuses more on the you can say those rulers which were ignored, okay, during the early years before 2014. So this is a reality which we have to acknowledge and we have to understand, because we have to clear the exam. So UPSC is more interested in this period, so we have to deal with this portion effectively, right? And in Delhi Sultanate and Mughals also, they ask like, administration plus some other aspects. So in any case, we cannot ignore that. Okay. And then Bhoj Parmar, most prominent king of the Parmar dynasty. So these Parmars, okay, ruled Malwa region during, okay, 10 to early 13th centuries, right? So he was the most prominent king. He ruled during 11th century, and he was a contemporary of Mahmud of Ghazni. Okay, so the contemporary kings, major kings who were contemporary of Mahmud of Ghazni, they are also important for us. Okay, now Parantak first Chol, very prominent Chola king who ruled for very long during the first half of 10th century. ठीक है, this is just an overview. ये basics हैं. If you study them in class properly, okay, and you revise them 2-3 times, आपको याद रहेगा. ठीक है, right? Not a big deal. Now see further explanation. Now imperial Cholas. Okay, imperial Cholas means they are different from the Sangam Cholas, right? So founder Vijayalaya Chol around mid of 9th century. ठीक है, 850 something. Then real founder is called Aditya first Chol. Okay, ruled towards the end of 9th century. मतलब 870 to 1907 something. And early years of 10th century. ठीक है, और ये दो तो हैं ही फेवरेट, राजराज फर्स्ट एंड राजेंद्र फर्स्ट. सो आपको पता होना चाहिए what is their time period. So Raj first ruled towards the end of 10th century and early 11th century, and Rajendra first. Okay, in 2025, a very simple question on Rajendra first Chol was asked. Okay, ruled during the first half of 11th century. तो देखो, if you know this much basic, you would be in a position to solve this and similar questions. ठीक है, right? Let's move ahead. आगे बढ़ते हैं. Right. So we'll discuss this when we'll discuss the next question, right? So from the decline of Guptas until the rise of Harshvardhan in the early 7th century, which one of the following kingdoms were holding power in northern India? UPSC 2021. Okay, now those students who have not read this portion, early medieval, they would get confused that, oh my god, this is such a tough question. But it is a simple question. Okay, if you know Harsha and his contemporaries, it is a very easy question. ठीक है. Now see, I'll also discuss you that what happened after the end of Guptas and Vakatakas, right? So first we'll discuss this, right? Then we'll discuss this question in detail. देखो, जैसे for example Guptas, right, and Vakatakas, right? So you can say roughly 4th to 6th centuries we see Guptas ruling large parts of North India and Vakataks Deccan, right? And this portion, Konkan region, some part of Konkan and Karnataka, right? Kadamba dynasty ruled. Okay, right. And later on Pallavas would emerge here. Okay, what happened is when Guptas will decline, large number of powers would come. Okay, now you can see Matraks of Vallabhis in Gujarat. Then this Pushyabhutis of Thanesar or Thaneshwar. So here only Harshvardhan, okay, king would emerge, and he would conquer all this portion, entire North India, except this Chalukya territory. Okay, so Chalukyas of Vatapi, right, would take the place of earlier Vakatakas. Okay, and in South India we see after Sangam period, okay, there's a gap. It means we find Kalabhr kings. Okay, we do not have much information about these kings. They were not the Vedic kings, right? So they were basically, Kalabhs were either Jains or Buddhists, right? So we do not have much documents or inscriptions, so we have very limited information about them. Then Pallavas would finally defeat them, okay, Sinhavishnu, towards the end of 6th century. Okay, then Pallava power would be revived by Mahendra Varman first, a favorite of UPSC. Okay, in this year prelims also, one question was asked on Mahendra Varman, and overall Pallavas, a question in mains was asked, which we discussed in the last video. Okay, and you can say these were minor powers, Cheras, Pandyas, right? So these are the powers which replaced the Guptas in North India. So if you know this question is very easy. Now see, okay, Guptas of Magad, yes, these are known as later Guptas of Magad and Malwa, as you can see in the map, right? Later Guptas, this is Malwa, this is Patliputra Magad, okay? Contemporary of, you can say Harsha would defeat all of them, right? Then Parmars of Malwa, no, ये तो later है. In last video also we discussed, right, when we were discussing about early medieval period. Okay, see, during this 1000 to 1200 we see, okay, Chalukyas of Kalyani, they are different. Then Parmars, Chauhans, okay, Yadavas, Chandelas, Gahadwalas. So if you just have basic idea, you would be in a position to eliminate options and even to correct the question. Okay guys, now see, let's move ahead. So Parmars of Malwa, not there. Pushyabhutis of Thanesar, yes, correct. Okay, why? From this dynasty only Harsha would emerge, and Harsha would conquer all these powers of North India. He tried to defeat, okay, Chalukyas of Vatapi also, but there he was defeated because he had to face Pulkeshi II, okay, very prominent ruler of Chalukyas of Vatapi, right? Mockeries of Kannauj, yes. Yadavas of Devgiri, no. Okay, Matrakas of Vallabhi, yes. You can see this in this diagram also, in this map. Okay, Matrakas of Vallabhi. So now this question appears to be very simple. Okay, 1 is there, then 1, 3, 4, 6. Okay, so this would be the answer, right? So prima facie this appears to be a tough question, but it is not. If you have basic idea of the chronology of dynasties and of major kings. So please remember guys, major kings are also important, like, you know, Bhoj Parmar, Bhoj Pratihar, okay, Rajraj I, Parantak I, okay, these kind of kings, right? So now this appears to be simple. Okay, now see, India towards the end of 6th century, what we see, North India, various powers like Pushyabhutis of Thanesar, okay, Mockeries of Kannauj, Matrakas of Vallabhi, later Guptas of Magad and Malwa, right? In Deccan, Chalukyas of Vatapi, they replaced the Vakatakas. Okay, so you can see Vakatakas ruled this Deccan portion, right? Then in south, after Sangam, Kalabhras, then Pallavas. Okay, so Siha Vishnu, you can say he's the one who's considered the, you can say, kind of founder. Okay, though this dynasty is much older, but he's the one who defeated Kalabhras. Okay, then Mahendra Varman, he would be the, you can say, real rise of Pallava power. Okay, so rise of Pallava power under Siha Vishnu and real rise of Pallava power under Mahendra Varman. What you have to remember for UPSC is just Mahendra Varman, okay, and his like for example his titles were asked in 2025, Matta Vilas, okay, because he wrote a play called Matta Vilas Prahasan. Then Vichitra Chitra, it means curious minded, okay, because he was interested in arts and literature also. Okay, so just these basics, right? So next question now. Okay, so this is about the later part of early medieval period. Okay, see, king and dynasty. So Nannuk Chandel, okay, this is correct because Nannuk is the founder of Chandel. अब ये Chandel कौन है? Chandels of Bundelkhand, right? Bundelkhand region in UP and MP. So this Bundelkhand was also called as Jejak Bhukti. Okay, oh my god. So not a difficult name because it was named after a king called Jejak. So Jejak ki jagah Jejak Bhukti. Okay, so Nannuk was the founder, and this dynasty built the famous Khajuraho temples, right? And Vidyadhar was a prominent king of this dynasty who was a contemporary of Mahmud of Ghazni, right? So major kings who were contemporaries of Mahmud of Ghazni and later Muhammad Ghori, this we need to know, okay? Right. So guys, now Jai Shakti also, right? This is Jejak. So this is not Parmar, this is Chandel only, this is not correct. Then Nagbhat second, Gurjar Pratihar, this is correct, right? So Palas, Pratiharas, Rashtrakutas, basic kings we need to know. So Nagbhat first was the founder and second was a prominent king. Gurjar Pratihar kings fought with the Arabs. ये इनकी सबसे important बात है, right? Because from 712 to 1192, many Indian kings, okay, tried to save India. Okay, they fought with the, you can say, Arab invaders. And finally, 1192, after the defeat of Prithviraj Chauhan, the Turkish rule was established. Now see, if you know Bhoja, so this Rashtrakoot cannot be there. Okay, so one Bhoj is Pratihar and one is Parmar. So no question of Rashtrakuta. So how many of the above pairs are correctly matched? Answer is now very simple, only 2. Okay. So you can say this was slightly tough question, but if you have some basic idea, then you can eliminate some options, right? Okay, so let's move ahead, guys. Okay, now the PM recently inaugurated the new circuit house near Somnath temple at Veeraval. Again, Mahmud Ghazni and Somnath are favorite topics. Which one of the following statements are correct regarding Somnath temple 2022, right? So now see, this Somnath temple is one of the Jyotirlinga shrines. This is an easy statement. Okay, there are 12 Jyotirlinga and this is the, you can say, first of those 12 shrines. Now in early medieval period we study about, okay, Al-Biruni, a famous Arab writer who, he was basically Persian but he wrote in Arabic, who came with Mahmud of Ghazni. Okay, so his description, okay, is known as Kitabul Hind or Tehqiq-e-Hind, right? Is very important. He has tried to portray objectively the history of India, though some subjectivity is there, and he was critical of Brahmanas, okay, and of you can say Indian society, right? So this is true. Description of Somnath temple was given by Al-Biruni. This is correct. He also said that after the invasion of Mahmud of Ghazni, Kannauj in 1030 was in ruins. So we get this information also from Al-Biruni, important for us. Pran Pratishtha, again, this is not Radhakrishnan but Rajendra Prasad. Okay, so you can see this, especially second statement. So if you study early medieval properly, you know about Al-Biruni. Okay, so at least you can eliminate some options, right? Others are easy. So in this manner we can deal with this question. Okay, now see, next question. Consider the following dynasties, UPSC 2023: Hoysala, Kakatiya, Yadava, Ghadwala. How many of the above dynasties established their kingdom in early 8th century? Ab dekho, if you know basics of early medieval, you know that none of these belong to early 8th century. Early 8th century में कौन से हैं? Okay, Palas, Pratiharas and Rashtrakutas, right? So ये कौन से हैं? These four, all you can see, they are part of the later part of early medieval period. Okay, so here you can see, right? So later part of early medieval period. So if you know this, this question is very simple. Otherwise, okay, तुक्का लगाना पड़ेगा and negative marking is there. So better not to do guesswork where you have no idea of any option, right? If you can eliminate two options, then only go for, okay, tukka, right? Now next question. Okay, this you can say is somewhat tough, though it is not very tough also. Okay, because some options you can eliminate easily, right? So again, this hint is that basics of literature and scholars you should know, because in future also UPSC will ask such questions, right? It's not very difficult to predict such questions if you do the main themes, okay, main kings, main scholars, then you would be in a position to solve such kind of questions. Okay, that's why I tell students that please don't ignore early medieval, because in mains also you'll find questions, and in prelims, because these days prelims has become so tough, okay, that one doable question, if you mark wrongly, you are out of the race. Okay, so if you study this portion, then at least you would have edge of one or two questions, right? So see, now Devi Chandragupta, this everyone knows that this was written by, okay, Vishak Dutt, right? See, Vishak Dutt wrote two plays during Gupta period, Sanskrit plays, Devi Chandragupta and Mudra Rakshas. Okay, right? And this Hamir Mahakavya. Now see, why UPSC asked this question? Because Hamir Dev, okay, he was the last Chauhan ruler of Ranthambore. Okay, Ranthambore was a prominent medieval fort. Okay, and Jalaluddin Khilji was not able to defeat him, right? He had to go back, right? Then Alauddin Khilji finally managed to defeat him. So this Naya Chandra Suri wrote Hamir Mahakavya in later 15th century. ये जो king है ये है, right, 13th and early 14th century के, but he has written this in 15th century. So about the achievements of Nayachand Hamir Mahakavya, right? Achievements of Hamir Dev, the king of last Chauhan king of Ranthambore. ठीक है? Now Milind Panna, this is simple, but यहाँ पे UPSC ने game कर दिया. देखो, Milind Panna is a post-modern period text. Okay? It means questions of Menander, right? So Menander हिंदी में क्या हो गया? Milind. ठीक है? Now basically ये क्या है? नागसेन. Okay? इन दोनों के बीच का dialogue है. Menander and Nagsen. So UPSC यहाँ पे इन्होंने डाल दिया Nagarjun to confuse you, right? So this is wrong. Then Niti Vakyamrit, Somdev Suri. Up now, what is this? See, this is also interesting. This is basically a 10th century text, okay, and it is compared to, right, Arth Shastra. It means nectar of the science of polity, right, composed by Somdev Suri, and he was associated with the court of Gurjar Pratihar rulers. Now, why this is important is because in this work he criticized the contemporary political situation of India, because this is the time when the army is fragmented, polity is fragmented, large number of kings are there, okay, so there was no unity among kings. So that's why the foreigners were able to defeat them one by one and establish their rule in India. So he gave this warning in 10th century, okay, so that's why UPSC asked this. So you can say slightly tough, but some options you can eliminate. So if you study this portion, right, because in this question, you know, they've asked ancient, early medieval, medieval, and okay, you can say later part of medieval also, right? So again, not a difficult question, easy one. Now again, very simple. Who among the following rulers in ancient India had assumed the titles Matta Vilas, Vichitra Chitra, and Gunbhar? So any student who has read some basics of Pallava dynasty knows that it is none other than Mahendravarman first. Okay, right. So very easy question, right? Now next question. Again, this is also very simple, from Cholas. So these Pallavas, Cholas, then Sangam period, then Vijayanagar period. Okay, they are favorite of UPSC. So you cannot ignore these portions, right? So who among the following led a successful military campaign against Kingdom of Sri Vijay, right? The powerful maritime state which ruled the Malay Peninsula, Sumatra, Java, and neighboring islands, right? So very simple, Rajendra first, right? Rajendra first Chol. So very simple question. So if you have read basics of Imperial Cholas, you know that this is the answer. So okay guys, so you see that early medieval period is such a portion which students and teachers both neglect, and UPSC also knows this. That's why it is asking questions from this portion. Okay, in mains also this question came in last mains, which we discussed in the last video. Okay, so guys, this is it for today's video. I'll meet you in next video. Thank you.